Hi, everyone. This is Neil Douglas, and this is American Truth Finders. I'm going to start the show off a little different tonight. By the way, our topic is voting by mail, or mail-in voting, however you want to put it. Also, we're going to get into people that are actually being registered in a way that you may not even know about. But first of all, the most important thing I want to do is ask you to let your friends know. Share this show right now, because this involves anybody who is registered or not registered, whatever the case might be, and is going to be voting this fall. Hi, Doris Roberts. Hey, I'm glad you could make it. I know there's a lot of talk. We are going to get back to eventually to the coronavirus, and in a way, this voting situation is a part of the coronavirus. I haven't brought that up yet, but please share this, because this topic of voting by mail or mail-in voting, whatever way you want to say it, it involves a lot of people. It involves everybody. It involves the total election. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to start it off differently in a way, because I'm going to list some things that you might or might not be aware of, and maybe you will understand and why this is so important. Daisha Coons, hi, how are you? I'm glad you could join us. I'm hoping that even some of the friends from around the world will join us, because even our election affects them. I mean, very seriously. Now, if I happen to cough or whatever, please overlook me, because I have got some drainage from sinus and allergies, but I'll do my best not to do that. And if my microphone is too loud, I hope that you will let me know. In the meantime, here's a couple of things I want to make sure that you understand why this is so important. First of all, some of the problems in mail-in ballots. I'm not referring to where you request a ballot. An absentee ballot is what I'm trying to say. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to mail-in ballots. Some of the problems are, first of all, ballots arriving in time. If you have to get a mail-in ballot, if your state, or if you get a mail-in ballot, getting it back in time is an issue. This is one of the problems. I want to welcome whoever else has just joined us. I hope you'll take part in this. This is an important situation, because we do have an upcoming election, and this affects everybody in this country. I'm just starting with a list of things that are, in my opinion now, this is what I'm putting down as some of the problems of mail-in voting. As I said, first of all, ballots that are arriving in time through the post office, getting to the county to where they get counted. Clerical errors. Have you thought about that? Clerical errors, where maybe you forgot to put your signature, or maybe you needed a social security number, or maybe you needed some other kind of information that was left out, or maybe you moved from one state to another and you did not contact the county that you were in and told them that you've moved. So what happens? You get two ballots, because you've registered in your new state. And so the person that's in that address that you left has now got one of your ballots. So they can vote twice, once for themselves and once for you. And then you get to vote again. Now, this is actually a fact, and I'm going to prove this in a minute. All right, now let's go on. The fact that in 2018, now I want you to pay attention to this. In 2018, when the Senate and the House had their election, okay, there was 8.2 ballots, 8.2%, excuse me, ballots that were not counted. 8.2 that were not counted. Hi, Lori Cuato, how are you? I'm so glad you could join us. This is a hot topic that we're talking about because voting is coming up, and there's going to be, there's going to be some fraud. There's going to be some fraud. But that 8.2% of ballots is roughly in the country about 28.5 million people that did not get counted in the election. Their vote didn't count, not one bit, because the ballots got lost. They didn't get processed due to errors, or they just got mishandled. They didn't end up getting delivered on time because certain states, you have to have them mailed in by certain time in October. So that's just one of the things. Another thing. Now, you would have full-blown, get ready for this one, a constitutional crisis if this happens. If your ballot is not there, if your ballot's not counted, and we have an election that all of a sudden can't be decided. And this is what's happening right now. They're pushing hard for all mail-in ballots. Now pay close attention to what I'm saying. This is more serious than what you realize. We would have a constitutional crisis, and guess who would be your president if the election is not decided by January? I believe the date is 20th. Somebody might correct me if they want to look that up real quick. Your president on January 20th, if the election is not decided, is Nancy Pelosi. The Speaker of the House is automatically the president. Now, for those of you that may be in love with Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure you're happy about that. For those of you that know anything about Nancy Pelosi and know the fact that she is, I don't know, I'm concerned about her just even being in the House. So here's my point. States are not even prepared for mail-in voting. Excuse me. They're not prepared. Does anybody have a clue why they're not prepared? They can't handle it. They cannot handle the mail of the balloting because they don't have the whole thing. Now let me just say that as far as I know, the deadline is January 20th, and if there is a tie, or if there's no possible way of an election being decided, and there's not going to be this year, it's not going to be decided the night of the election. I'm going to tell you that right now. And it's going to be contested by whoever loses, I'm sure, whether it be Trump or whether it be Biden. They're going to contest and Nancy Pelosi's even told Biden not to concede, period. Now, I find that to be appalling. No matter what political party it is, for the Speaker of the House to tell their particular party, do not give up and concede to the presidency, no matter what. So what she's saying that don't worry about the ballots, don't worry about the voting, don't worry about the numbers, don't concede. Well, I'm telling you right now that voting by mail is very, 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 very possibly dangerous or serious. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I would like for you to answer these, if you would. What party wants, get ready for this, what party wants to clean up, doesn't want, excuse me, I'm not even reading my own typing, doesn't want to clean up voter rolls of dead people? They do not want. Hey, Audrey Wood, how are you? I'm glad you could make it. This is we're on a topic that I've started where I listed some things, Audrey, to kind of bring you up to date of things that are going on if we do mail-in voting or vote by mail, however people want to say it. But what party doesn't want to clear up voter rolls of dead people? Now, think about this. If they don't want to get rid of if they want to send out ballots to dead people, why? Are they sending them out to their dogs or their cats or whatever? Why don't they want the dead people taken off the rolls? Somebody could have died since the last election, so they're going to get a ballot. They don't want them taken off the rolls so that somebody might be able to get that and vote for them, for whatever side they want, or whoever. This could work both ways. I mean, I'm going to be honest with everybody. She knows he will screw up. I think what you're saying there, Doris, is that that's why they don't even want him to. They don't want Biden to actually do any more than. I don't even think they want her. She doesn't want him to do any campaigning, or what's the word I want to say? Boy, I lost for words. They don't want any debates. I'll get it out. My mind is still on what I've got here in front of me. Gary Howe, how are you? Hey, I'm glad to see that you're here. Welcome aboard, and I hope that you've got anything to say. Please say it, type it in, and I'm going to tell you something. We're on a hot topic of voting by mail and what's happening around the country if there is an election that is not decided on the night that we have, and it's not going to be. I'm going to tell you right now, Nancy Pelosi, as of January 20th, will be your president until it's decided. So anyway, the thing that I'm trying to get at is what party doesn't want signatures? Can you tell me which party doesn't want signatures? First of all, they don't want to get rid of the dead people, and they don't want to get rid of signatures. And what party does not want signature validation? You go to the polls, if you go to vote and you don't, you sign your name, they don't want that. And what party, are you ready, wants universal mail-in ballots? That's not talking about absentee. That's not talking about absentee ballots. Those are fine. Absentee ballots are fine, but I mean, they can even get lost in the mail too. I'm telling you right now, anything is possible. Now, to go on, why would they want to do this? For what reason other than to steal or defraud the election? Now, I'm going to go on, and they also want, this particular party wants illegals to vote. What are your thoughts? Please give me your thoughts, people. Share this video with the other people, with your friends. Let them know what's going on, because I'm going to tell you right now, you better be prepared. You better be prepared that this is going to be one wild election, and it's going to get ugly. It's going to get very ugly, and you're not going to know. You're not going to know. President Trump made his comment that we might not know for a week. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Mr. President. With all due respect, I do believe it's not going to be within a week. I believe, in all due respect, it may drag out, because Nancy Pelosi has already said, Biden, do not concede if you should lose. And I believe that possibly could happen. But we're not going to know, because all the votes won't be counted. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to tell you why they're not going to get all counted. Dave Shakun says that's crazy. Yeah, of course it's crazy. The bottom line is, why should illegals be able to vote when illegals, if they're here legally even, but they're not a citizen? If they're here legally, they're getting health care, they're getting work, they're paying taxes. I understand all of that, but why should they be able to vote? This particular party, and I'm just going to say it like it is, I've already asked you if you knew which party wants all this done, and I think you already know. It is the Democrat Party. Now, I mean, this is really going too far. Gary House says illegals should never vote unless they are granted citizenship. That's my what I just got done saying. You're right, Gary. You're absolutely correct. And Deja says exactly. So here's the problem. Here's the problem we've got to look at, and is that in the last, I mentioned this on my last show, but I'm going to mention it again. In 15 elections that have been thrown out because of fraudulent mail-in ballots. There were 15 elections in the past, and this refers to Florida, Missouri, New York, North Carolina, and that's just been in the recent years. There are 15 elections that were thrown out because because of mail-in ballots, fraudulent. And I mean, if you're not aware of this, I mean, I'm not going to read all of this, but I can tell you right now, between 1992 and 2018, at least 20 voter fraud cases resulted in overturned elections. In overturned elections, not just, I'm not just talking about mail fraud. I'm talking about they were overturned because of the mail fraud. And this is according to the Heritage Foundation. All right, and the problem, and I am reading, so you understand this. This is the way I used to do my radio show. All of you know that, so I will continue to do that. And if you ever watch anybody on TV, many of them will read their notes that they have in front of them. They look down, so I'm no different. I'm no different. But I mean, we're talking about, we're talking about even in local elections. We're talking about even the local elections that are fraudulent. We're talking, like in 2020. I'll give you an example. 2016 Missouri State Representative Penny Hubbard won the 2016 Democratic primary in the state's 78th House District by just 90 votes. Her opponent, Bruce Franks Jr., contested the outcome. Now, are you ready for this? And it was a lopsided absentee vote tally. Franks won by 1,533 votes. So if he won by 533 votes when Penny Hubbard thought she had won by 90 votes, what does that say to you, for crying out loud? And that's just one example. I can give you many more. Gary House says, I sense, Neil, this upcoming election may be contested by both directions. Well, yes, Gary, I have to tell you, I did say that earlier, possibly maybe before you came on. It's going to be contested. It's going to be contested by both parties because the election is going to be that close. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind, and it goes back to the excuse. I'm using an excuse of the COVID virus. People can ask for an absentee ballot. They can also wear a mask. Not in every case. I understand that states are saying, nope, they're going to get mail-in ballots only, and that's the way it's going to work. Well, guess what? It's not going to work that way. It is not going to work that way. And I'm telling you right now, you better be prepared for a real long night, and even further than that. And by January 20th, I'll repeat it again for those who might have missed it, by January 20th, if there is no decision as to who won the election on November 3rd, Nancy Pelosi will take over as President of the United States until this election has decided. And that mail-in vote, as I said before, can cause a constitutional crisis. And you better believe me on that one. And if you don't believe me, you do your research, please. I want you to do your research anyway, because you're going to learn more about it. You're going to find out more about it. You're going to find out that this is more serious than you can even imagine. You know, I mean, uh, you know, when you have, I'm not talking about absentee ballots. I'm talking about ballots that aren't counted, ballots that are illegal, ballots that go to their dog, the cat, the person who died, um, and or to people who. California is a good example. I mean, I said this last show I did, and I'm going to say it again. Newsom is absolutely out of his mind, mailing millions of just voter ballots, going to everybody and anybody. If your dog has a name, he's probably got a ballot coming. If your cat's got a name, he's probably got it. Even your goldfish. You know, am I going too far? I don't know. But to send them to just everybody, millions of people that are in California, and that's going to include illegals. So who's going to be doing the voting? Who's going to elect our next president? Who is going to, is Trump going to be able to be, is he going to get back in? If you look at the polls, of course, the polls say that Biden's ahead, but I'm going to tell you something, I've never believed any of the polls anyway. I don't care if it's Fox, I don't care if it's whose poll it is. I don't care if it's CNN, I don't care you know, whose poll it is. I'm telling you right now, I don't trust them. I don't believe them. I don't trust them. I don't, you know, it's just, that's the way I feel, because there's always a margin of error. Just like voting, you're going to have ballots that aren't counted because of errors. No signature, no social security number. It got lost in the mail, and I'm going to get in further on that. 28 million ballots were missing in the last 4 elections. I may have told you that earlier. I'm going to tell it to you again. And that was between 2012 and 2018. It says 28.3 mail-in ballots remain uncounted. They did remain uncounted. This was up to 2018. And that is part of the 2018 election, where 8.2% of the ballots were not counted, and that's about 28 million people right there. And the House ended up. I wrote it down now. Well, I don't remember what I did with it, but they ended up with like 40. I want to say, okay, yeah, here we go. The House ended up with 47 seats in 2018. 47, and the Senate gained 2 for the Republicans. So the Democrats got the House by 47 seats. Now, was there any fraud involved? I don't know. They're saying here that 28 million ballots over the last 4 elections. Well, if 8.2 weren't even counted in 2018, there was probably, I know there was a low voter turnout, but let's pretend. 28 million of maybe 33 million votes, or I mean of 300 out of 380 million, 50 million people, excuse me, and not all 350 million people vote, because these are children that are involved. Okay, now, you know, states and local authorities have no idea what happened to these ballots. You know, they since they were mailed, and the figure of 28 million missing are likely even higher, because some area in the country, you know, notably Chicago, did not respond to the federal agency's survey questions. This figures does not include ballots that were spoiled, undelivered, or came back for any reason. So now here we have a situation facing us in just a few weeks. How many days? What is this? The 30th? Okay. And then on November 3rd, we vote. So just a little over a month. September and October. 2 months, excuse me. So, you know, they said even though there's no evidence that the millions of missing ballots were used fraudulently, the public interest Legal Foundation, says that the sheer volume of them raises serious doubts of the election security. Well, it also makes you wonder who won these elections. Could it have been reversed? Or would it have stayed the same? We'll never know. And I'm telling you right now, for those of you that are sticking with me, and please share this video or this broadcast, because I'm telling you right now, this is more important than you realize. I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, Republican, Tea Party, or whatever it is. This has to do with your future, has to do with your children's future, has to do with your grandchildren's future. I'm telling you, you better pay attention, because, and I know that you are. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just talking in a very serious tone. This is not a game. This is the most important election coming up in our history. And if you do not believe that, you look around and see what's happening. If you look around, please pay close attention. Daisha Coons just said, so what do we do? That's a question that is one of the hardest questions to answer. The only thing that we can do as people, number one, protect your vote. You can ask for an absentee. You can go online and get it in some states. You can request an absentee by making a call to the county registration or your whatever party you're with. However, it's in each state is different, of course. Number one, protect your vote. Make sure that if you get an absentee ballot, I'm telling you right now, you can fill it out, and then you can, instead of putting it in the mail, you can take it to the voting place and have it done right there. You can drop it off right at the voting place. And believe me when I say this, that's only one way. The other way is you're going to have to convince your friends and to pay attention. I watched something just a little bit ago, earlier today, where someone was interviewing younger people, because there's going to be a lot of younger people that are going to vote. But they didn't even know. These kids did not know, and they're in college. We're talking about college kids. They did not know who the commander-in-chief is. They didn't even know what he was. They thought, in a couple cases, they thought he was the head of a beach that they were at. Now, I mean, this may sound crazy, but I'm telling you, it's a true story. This was an actual interview. Some people couldn't even tell you who the president was. They did not know the name of the president. They thought Pence was. I mean, this is, in some cases, and most of them didn't know at all. Let me see. Daisha says, what if we have to mail in vote? Well, if you have to mail in, make sure that you've got everything filled out properly. Go to the post office, get it stamped. Get it postmarked, because the postmark is your key answer to your vote getting counted. Once it gets to the post office and it gets to your local precinct. Now, at your precinct, you got to understand, if you're talking big cities, things are going to happen, and I'm going to get into that, because guess what? There was a vote by mail experiment, and it reveals potential problems within the postal voting system ahead of the November election. All right, and I'm going to read this to you so that I don't miss it and you misunderstand it. And maybe, Daisha, this will help you understand why I'm saying to you, if you fill out your own absentee ballot, take it down to the post office and make sure that it gets stamped. And I'm telling you right now, hope and pray that your postal department doesn't shove these ballots in the corner like some people have done in the past, even been caught taking people's information that they're running for an office, because possibly they didn't like the guy. The guy got caught dumping them in the dumpster. This has happened with ballots as well. The guy that got caught with the guy that was trying to get elected to something, and I don't even know what state it was in, he did get fired because it was caught on camera. But I want to get into this. I want to get into this vote by mail experiment. It says we're gonna see somewhere between probably 80 to 100 million voters receiving their ballot. Now, former Arizona election officials, Tammy Patrick, told CBS this morning, a co-host that is now a senior advisor for the elections program of the Democracy Fund, whatever that is. I got to be honest, I don't know what that is. Wait a minute here. Dacia says, I do want to keep looking at your comments because I don't want to leave anybody out. Dacia says, no, I'm saying if there's no voting polls. Well, if there's no voting polls, you have no choice but to make sure that it gets mailed. You have to get to a mailbox with it. You can't, I mean, there's no, the absentee vote ballot. And then you have a situation where you have to somehow get it mailed. Put it in your mailbox or whatever and pray and hope that it gets delivered to the post office, gets stamped, and gets sent off to your precinct so that they can be counted. Audrey Wood says, fired, he should be in jail. You're right. The guy that did that should, and I don't know if he's in jail, but I think he got fired. I know he was let go from the post office. But this is not the first situation. I'm going on here. It says, for the experiment, a post office box was set to represent a local election office, and a few days later, after the initial ballots were mailed, 100 more were sent. Okay, so first they sent off one batch, and then they sent off another. The mock ballots used the same size envelope and the same class of mail as the real ballots, and even had mock ballots folded in the approximate weight, so they were so close. The biggest difference are mail-in ballots have a logo that is meant to expedite them. Now, CBS this morning was unable to include those in the trial. In other words, that was just something they couldn't put that official stamp on. Now, a week after the mock trial, or mock ballot trial, the initial ballots were sent. Most ballots appeared to be missing from the post office box. Most, it said. A week after initial ballots were sent, most ballots appeared to be missing from the post office box. I don't see anything back there for you. This was a postal worker told this particular reporter when he received the mail, he said, this is all I have back there right now. And it turned out, and I'm sorry about making the noise, but I'm reading now for this. After asking a manager and explaining the situation to them, the votes were found. Suddenly, they got found. They had them somewhere else, the postal worker said. Then another problem. Missorted mail. We got a birthday card from Mike to Ronnie. And the reporter said, as they turned he read the postcard mistakenly, placed in the CBS This Morning's outbox, or post office box, says, have a sweet B-Day. Got it? There's a B on the top. Now, going on, 4 days after mailing the second batch of mock ballots, 21% of the votes had not even arrived. 21% had not even arrived. Now, you take 21% of any type of national, local, whatever, That is a serious problem of votes that are not being counted. So says, so states like Ohio, you can request your ballot on a Saturday up until the noon of Tuesday's election. And that is the worst possible thing. And I have to agree. There's states out there, you have to find out what your state is about. How does your state handle your election? How does your state handle things? I mean, is your state, do you know, do you people know what your state says how you can vote, how you can get an absentee ballot, how to make sure, especially with this coronavirus, what's going on? And they said, going on with this article says, I'm scared that it might get lost in the mail. This is kind of like what Daisha asked earlier. A potential voter had asked this particular reporter, I just want to make sure that my vote is submitted. Like I see that this submitted, it's actually counts. She wants her vote to count. You want your vote to count. I want my vote to count. Now, I just don't trust the mail. Bingo! How many people? And hey, Dave Frank, how are you? I'm glad you could join us. We're talking about voting by mail, Dave, and I don't know if you've missed any of this, but this is a very serious situation, and it's going to get really ugly by the time November 3rd comes around. Going back to what I was reading here, that we all want our vote to count. We want to trust the mail, but guess what? How many people have looked for their mail lately? And I'm just asking because I know for some reason or another, there's been oddly, and it might be the virus, I don't know, or maybe that not too many people or too many companies are sending out mail. But the bottom line is you go to your mailbox and there's no mail at all. Has any of that happened to you lately in the last few months? By the way, Dave, I do want to thank you for joining us. If I didn't say that. You have to overlook me. I'm on a roll here. Anyway, after nearly 15,000 votes arrived late in Philadelphia in the June primary, the person, Dulcie is the name, Dealey, I guess is how it's pronounced, who helps oversee elections, said voters are right to be wary. You're right to worry about your vote counting. You're right to worry about mail-in. You have the right, because it's going to get worse. And Nancy Pelosi's wanting to do a universal mail-in vote. That everybody gets one. Everybody in the country just mails in their vote, period. And they're having a big argument over how to fund the post office. The post office doesn't know yet how they're going to handle it. They say they can. And then instead of getting anything done, all the Congress does, and I'm talking about the Republicans and the Democrats both, and the independents that are part of that. Guess what? They're doing nothing but sitting on their fannies and arguing with each other, not getting a darn thing done. And then, wouldn't matter whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever is president. If this goes on like this, guess what happens? Nothing gets done. Our country is headed for the cliff. It's headed over the cliff. And I hope that you understand what I'm trying to tell you, because, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care who you vote for. The bottom line is this is serious. Your vote may not count. And they're blaming a lot of this on the coronavirus, and I'm going to get into the coronavirus on another show again, because I've done this before. The vaccines, et cetera, the masks, you name it. We're going to talk about it. But tonight is about voting, and also I'm going to get into who's registering people to vote, and I think it's going to surprise you. But so please hang in there. And please share this with people so that they will come on, because I do want to see some comments like I'm getting tonight, and really, I really appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. It helps me to try to give you more information. The Postmaster General declined CBS this morning's request for an interview. That was after that trial mailing where so many, 21% did not get counted. And if you take that on a national level, 21% is a lot of people. You're talking about 20 million people, 20 million votes on a national level. I'm talking about. There's nothing that here that I think that's important. I'm going to finish reading on that article. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Here's something that's very interesting. The United States Post Office says Pennsylvania mail-in ballots may not be delivered on time, and the state warns of overwhelming risk to voters. And that was just recently. And let me see. Lori says we can still walk in and vote, right? Yes. Now, I have heard a rumor, and I'm calling it a rumor because I can't back this up, Lori, depending on what state you are in. I want people to understand something. Some places precincts where you go to vote want you to wear a mask and gloves, okay? And you can still go in and vote. Other states, and I can tell you a couple of them that aren't, that are mail-in, and Hawaii is one of them. I thought I had it in front of me. I'll find it and then I'll let you know what states they are. There's like 4 or 5 that are mail-in states. But when the United States Postal Service says that Pennsylvania their ballots may not be delivered on time, do you realize that they are a key state in any election, national election? They are a key state along with Wisconsin, along with Michigan, along with Ohio. You've got Pennsylvania. And if Pennsylvania's ballots cannot be delivered on time, what happens to the election, to the national election? To answer your question again, Laura, you might want to contact your headquarters of whatever party you belong to and find out how you would go to vote in person. That would be the best thing I would recommend for anybody. Now, the U.S. Postal Service has warned that that some of the ballots might not be delivered on time. I already told you that. The warning came in July from Thomas Marshall, Federal Counsel and Executive Vice President of the Postal Service in Pennsylvania. Secretary of State Mary Bachler says, whose department oversees elections. The letter was made public late Thursday, and this was just recently. And I want you to know something. It says here that they're going to be filing her Department of State submitted to the Supreme Court asking to order that mail ballots be counted as long as they received up to 3 days after November 3rd election date. That's after the election date. 3 days. That's all right. I can accept 3 days because we're not going to know the results. I told you this already. I don't mean to keep repeating it. We're not going to know who won the presidential election the night of the election. You're not going to know. And there's just no way. And with Nancy Pelosi telling Biden not to concede, might drag out even longer. And for those of you that are just joining us, I'm going to tell you, if it goes on until January 20th with no decision as to who is the president, Nancy Pelosi becomes president of the United States until it is decided. And that scares me because I don't care whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or what you are. I'm telling you right now, Nancy Pelosi is not the person you want when she's already dictating to the country. She's practically running the country now anyway. That's just my opinion, and I'm sorry if I'm upsetting anybody. But, hey, I'm telling you as I see it. I'm telling you as I feel it, and I'm telling you as I think. You have your right, and that's why I'm telling you to message me if you disagree, because I respect everybody's opinion. I really, truly do respect it. We may not agree, but I do respect it. Now, with this idea that the U.S. Postal Service may not be able to get the ballots delivered on time. What other state might have that problem? Maybe New York, or maybe Illinois, maybe, any big state that has millions of people. But when you're talking about a swing state, and they can decide a decision like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, or Minnesota, and Wisconsin mainly, you're talking about some serious voting going on. You got some serious issues going on. I just wished I could. I just wish that I could find the other states, but that's all right. I told you about Pennsylvania. Okay. Now the U.S. also warns. Get ready for this one. They're warning 46 states of mail-in voting trouble. Now we've got a problem. Now we have a real problem when the United States Postal Service has, and this was on August 14th, just what, 2 weeks ago? Just 2 weeks ago. All right. Doris Roberts, Nancy is worthless. Well, I don't agree with what Nancy's policies are on everything. There's some things I have said that she's made some pretty good remarks, but that doesn't mean, I wouldn't want her as the president for any reason. And I'm going to go into something about that so that you all understand where I'm coming from. We've got people in Congress right now that are so old that they should have retired a long time ago. Nancy Pelosi is one of them. Mitch McConnell is on the other side. He's one that should have. I'm just giving you an example. Chuck Schumer from New York, he should have resigned a long time ago. You got people on the right and people on the left, and both of them, they've made it a lifetime career to be a politician, to tell you how to live your life. And now it's gotten even more serious with the coronavirus. It's gotten much more serious with the coronavirus, and I'm telling you right now, I'm hoping that there's people that because I do have viewers from other countries that are watching this, because our election in this country, the United States of America, will affect your country as well. Believe me on that one. Right now, we have got an issue that we better be careful of, and that is China. Do not underestimate the fact that China is going to get involved with this election. And don't underestimate that Russia is going to get involved somehow with this election. It may be subliminal, or it may be some way that you don't even know, but it's going to happen. And China does not want Trump back in office. I'm telling you right now, China does not want. And in fact, on my website, I have kept up posted for a reason about how much of China, how much of the U.S. China owns, how much of the products come from China. Even with Trump being hard on China and actually being the one president that's had the nerve enough to tell China, we've had it with you. We're bringing the work back to the United States. Now, am I trying to promote Trump? What I'm trying to do is give you facts. I'm giving you facts. Look them up. Don't take my word. China, you better be cautious of. If Biden gets back in, and I'm going to tell you, I already know this because for 47 years the man has been in office. He has been in love with China. But let me say something else. I'm more concerned the fact that if Biden is elected, it won't be Biden that runs the country. It will be Nancy Pelosi. It will be Bernie Sanders. It will be AOC and her squad. You got one from Michigan, Minnesota, and I can't remember what the third one is, that are part of the squad. They will be running this country, and we will no longer be the United States of America. We'll be the United Social States of America, and then maybe eventually become the United Marxist States of America, and we might not even be called America. I'm just telling you. But anyway, going back to the mail-in voting, this was as of August 14th, just a couple weeks ago. The mail-in voting controversy is interesting, according to the Washington Post. The U.S. Postal Service has warned 46 states and D.C. that trouble is looming. You darn right it's looming. The United States Postal Service can't guarantee all ballots cast by mail would arrive back in time to be counted. The reason, because current deadlines for people to request and return ballots set up in pre-pandemic days won't work amid the expected surge of the mail vote-in, the in-mail voting. This is according to the United States Post Office. Now, some states are scrambling to change their deadlines, including Pennsylvania, because of what I just wrote to you about, what I just read to you about Pennsylvania, saying that the U.S. Postal Service says they can't handle it. They cannot handle the mail-in or the mail-in ballots for Pennsylvania. And this article goes on to say, this was according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, that but other states have not or cannot do it in time for the election. They cannot possibly do it in time. They can't set up the state for mail-in voting on time for the next election. The Postal Service is seeking election officials and voters to realistically consider how the mail works. A United States Postal Service spokesman says in a statement related, example, the United States Postal Service warned 31 states that voters would have to return their ballots by October 27th. They have to be returned by October 27th. That's 31 states that the United States Postal Service has told you about. Now, to ensure that they would be counted. Now, former President Obama doesn't seem to be shy anymore about publicly criticizing his successor. In a podcast, Obama accused Trump of trying to kneecap the U.S. Postal Service to discourage voting. That's according to CNN. And let's see, let me read on here because I missed my place. Okay. What we've seen in a way of unique to modern political history is a president who's explicit in trying to discourage people from voting. I want to ask one of you, any of you, all of you, doesn't matter who it is. Have you heard Trump discourage people from voting? Please tell me, because I haven't heard it yet. Ray Kirkus, how are you? I'm glad you could join us. Ray says, well, it's definitely going to be bad regardless of what happened. You're right. Absolutely, you're right, Ray. I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you something. This is going to get so ugly. And as I said earlier, for those of you that are watching, those of you that are participating, those of you that will watch this show later on because maybe of your schedule, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to know who the president is the night of the election. You're not going to know within a week even. President Trump says 3 days, as I said earlier. I don't think it'll know in a week. And I'm going to go back and repeat it, so you better pay attention, people, and tell your friends, tell everybody you know. Tell everybody you know. If in fact, this election in November is not decided by January 20th, if they don't come up with a winner, if Joe Biden should lose and Nancy Pelosi tells him not to concede under any circumstances, or if they have, because of the counting, because it's contested, it's going to be contested on either side. I'm telling you right now, you're going to end up with Nancy Pelosi as your president until a president is decided. And I'm going to tell you, there's a possibility that the Senate will lose their seats back to the Democrats. And then we're not going to have that way of balancing. Because when you have, even with 2 years of the Republicans with Trump, there was no balance because they were all one-sided. You can't, and nothing still got done because all of the Russia hoopla and they trying to impeach Trump, all that. I mean, to me, Congress was a waste of time for the last 4 years, to be honest with you. That's just my personal opinion. That's, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, going back to what the United States Postal Service says, 46 out of all of our states are in trouble. They're all in trouble with the mail-in voting. And again, Daisha says no, never. And I'm sure you're referring to the fact that you've not heard Trump discourage people from voting. I've not heard it. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there has heard it. According to CNN, they supposedly think that Obama has said it, that Trump is encouraging people not to vote. Well, why would he encourage people not to vote? That would be kind of silly. If he wants to continue staying at the White House, I'm sure that he does want people to get out and vote. I'm sure he'll encourage people to go out and vote. Look, I've even got an article here where 4 people were charged with mail-in election fraud as Democrats try to push vote by mail. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. You have to believe me. It is not going to stop. This mail-in voting is going to be an issue. And if the Senate loses its seats to the Democrats, whether Trump is reelected or not, and then the House remains as the Democrats, you're going to end up with all states mail-in voting, no matter who it is. It could be your dog, your cat, your turtle, your goldfish, whatever you got. Maybe you got a pet alligator. It doesn't matter. Illegals are all going to be allowed to vote. I'm just telling you, we've got to have a balance somewhere where it can be stopped, where illegals don't. They should want a better life, but they should also be a citizen before they can vote. And California's really blown it by just saying, hey, anybody gets to vote. If they live here, pay taxes here, and they eat here or whatever, they work here, they get to vote. No, I don't buy that, and I won't buy that. And then you can disagree with me, and I'll respect your opinion. But, we'll discuss it. As I said, 4 people were charged because of mail-in voting. Let me tell you something, when that happens, and that was in, Paterson, New Jersey, where just recently, I think that there was a situation where they haven't been able to decide the vote. You guys, I'm sure you know about this. You watch the news, you've seen what's happened. You know what's going on. Now, Gary House agrees 100%. Gary, I'm telling you, well, Gary, I don't know, if illegals, and I think that's what you're referring to, are allowed to vote, and they're in a state that is what we refer to color states, but this is a blue state, where Newsom is the governor. They've got a lot of illegals there. You can go to Arizona, and they've got a lot of illegals. And you go to New Mexico, Texas. Now, my question to you is, just because they are here and they have come here legally, but they're not a citizen, should they be allowed to vote? No, they're not a citizen. They can't run for office. They cannot be, what's the word I want to use? They can't run for president. They can't be a part of a city council or anything. They can work and pay taxes and have a home or whatever, but until they become a citizen, most people come here to have a better life, and most of the good people are good people that want to become a U.S. citizen. I won't deny that. But we've got a tremendous amount of illegals in here in our country that are not a part of our U.S. citizenry and should not be allowed to vote. Let's go on. Let me read a couple more here. Ray Kirkus says, I believe illegals are already allowed to vote in California. You may be right, Ray. I got to be honest with you. I do not know. They are not supposed to vote for federal candidates, but what will stop that? See, that's where I'm getting at with Newsom doing a mass mailing, millions of to everybody, anybody and everybody. Even people that are dead are going to get them because they may have voted in the last election and nobody has notified the election, that precinct or whatever, that person is no longer alive. Take them off the rolls. The Democrats, you may not have been here, Ray, when I mentioned this. The Democrats do not want to take dead people off the rolls. The Democrats do not want to take dead people off the rolls. They do not want signatures. They do not want you to have to sign when you vote. They do not want you to have an ID when you vote. Well, let me tell you something, and I think you're all aware of this. Before I get to you, Gary, I'm going to mention this. If you go to a doctor now, you have to have some kind of an ID. And you're going to tell me that these people that don't have IDs or don't vote or whatever, are not registered to vote, don't have an ID of some kind? If they have any kind of if they go to an emergency room, they got to have an ID. If they get Medicaid, they have to have an ID. Look, it's very simple. If they can go to a grocery store to buy groceries, they can also go and get an ID. They can don't give me any excuses that they can't, unless they are disabled in some way. And if that's the case, they can have somebody help them figure out how to get an identification. Now, I'm not buying that we should allow people not to have an ID to vote, to drive. You have to have an ID to drive. You have to have a driver's license, for crying out loud. If you apply in certain states, if you apply for a handgun permit or any kind of gun permit, you have to have an ID. You don't just get it willy-nilly. If you go to get your driver's license, you have to have an ID. Even a renewal driver's license. So I mean, this is why illegals should not be allowed. And you might be right, Ray, in California, that maybe they're not voting for federal, but maybe local, but yet with Newsom sending out ballots to everybody. I'm going to tell you right now, I think that's a mistake. It could cost. Look, if you were to take New York and California alone, with the population, if it were a popular vote, none of the other states would have to vote. The Midwest would not count a bit. They would not count one little bit. I mean, this is why I'm telling you, this coming up election is going to be the most important election in your life. We thought that the last one was, or maybe even the one before, but I'm telling you right now, this one is, because you've got the left is leaning so far left, they're about to fall off the cliffs. I'm sorry to tell you, they've even got the right. Some of them are so far off to the right that they're ready to fall off the cliff. Last night, Portland ended up with a death. I don't want to get into that one right now. A shooting, and the mayor is blaming Donald Trump for the rioting. Now, explain that one to me, will you? I just wish somebody would. I'm going to go back to the comments here. Gary Howe says, no, they should not be allowed to vote unless they have citizenship. Well, that's exactly correct. They shouldn't be allowed to, and they're not. It's not a case that they're allowed to. They're doing it because they're being allowed to. They're being persuaded because they get the ballot. They get this thing in the mail that says, here, fill it out. Who do you want for president? You think that's going to fly? You think it's not going to be contested? It's got to be contested. Daisha says they don't let felons vote. No, they don't. We don't let felons vote. But I tell you what, they do. The Democrats do want felons to vote. They want to give them that chance to vote. I know that that might not be in the bill right this minute, but I know it is in their thoughts. Gary Howe says they want felons to vote and prisoners. Yes, they do. And here we go again. Here we go again. What happens on election night? Daisha Kuhn says, but they want to let non-American citizens vote. Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about with illegals. They want them to vote. Oh, you're talking to, replying to Gary, Dacia says, what? Are you referring to the prisoners as well, Dacia? I'm assuming you are. Anyway, okay, Gary, replying to Gary says, the Democrats want prisoners to vote and felons and turtles, bats, rats, dogs, cats, and dead people. I'm sorry I have to laugh, but that is a pretty good one, Gary. That was a good one. I have to tell you that is a good one. Now, with this voting thing, I'm going to go into an article, and I don't know how much time we'll spend on it, but I'm going to start something here. On my promo, I mentioned that people that are being registered to vote in a way that you might not be familiar with. And could it lead to fraud? Is it a good thing, a bad thing, or what is it? And is this going to include illegals, or what is it, or is it not? Now, here's what some of you may be aware of, and if you are, please tell me. If you're not aware of it, please tell me as well. On the morning of November 9th, the day after the 2016 U.S. presidential election, a visceral sense of which was felt throughout the campus of Harvard Medical School, Donald Trump's victory appeared to be an abrupt rebuke of so many of our community best held values, qualities, and service. Compassion. As medical students and physicians in Boston, we understood that we were isolated. Now I want you to pay attention to this article, please. This is not a joke. Both geographically and ideologically, from the meleeed forces that swept Mr. Trump into office. However, there was something unsettling about our collective disbelief. How was it so many of us had failed to recognize the depth of pain and divisiveness that existed within our country? There arose in all of us a need to understand, and this is the title of the title of this article is How Doctors Can Help Win the Next Election. I didn't stutter, did I? How doctors can win the next election, and I'm going to tell you. In the aftermath of the election, political analysts have subscribed to Trump's victory to several things: accommodation and intellectual elite, widespread economic dissatisfaction, and the rise of patient strain of populism. However, are you ready? Closer inception reveals another contributor to this startling election result. Though the final votes are still being tallied, it's clear that Mr. Trump will have received fewer votes than the previous two Republican nominees garnered in defeat. Now, I'm telling you this because let me tell you what's happening. I'm going to skip over a little bit, and I'm going to tell you this. It goes on to say, with this in mind, what can we as medical students, physicians, and healthcare workers professionals, no doubt part of the intellectual elite, do to heal the personal and social social wounds of this election? How can we ensure going forward that that makes the values of which we adhere remain secure? Answers to these questions will likely require significant reflection, but we believe that democracy is at the best and most equitable. Well, here, I'm going to put it simply. These people were pissed off. Excuse my language for those, but that's what happened. That Trump won the last election. So what did they do? Voter registration in healthcare setting is meaningful. That's what they are. That's what this is all about. Since the pioneering work of Rudolf Virchow in the 19th century, generations of physicians have sought to improve the social factors that curse illnesses among their patients, and the advocacy has led to, among others, that provision of drinking water, widespread to access to vaccines and campaigns to reduce cigarette smoking, etc., 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 etc. But now, professional obligations must come first in any provider's agenda, but ambitions too should be championed. Now, let me explain what they're saying here. Voting, of course, does not directly cure diseases, but it can empower citizens to influence society around them. They are influencing people. This is what's happening. Now, a vote to any candidate or platform propels particular healthcare agenda, whatever it defends or denies women's reproductive rights, raises or lowers the rise of prescription drugs, or expands, narrows, etc., 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 etc. Voter registration in the United States is indeed problematic. So what is happening now is, in 2001, there was a striking connection between voter participation and self-reported levels of health. Who come up with that? I can tell you. It was the people that hated the fact that Donald Trump won, and I know the date is not there, but I'm going to tell you something. 2001 started a movement. Now, here's what I want to tell you. And I know that you're getting tired, and I'm not going to keep this long, because we may continue this another time. But I'm going to tell you something. In the New York Times, on July 30th of this year, the sign is easy to miss in the waiting room of emergency department of Massachusetts General Hospital, next to the reception desk. A hand sanitizer pump, register here to vote. It says here on an iPad attached to the lectern. The kiosk has been there since November, before the pandemic began, and stayed there through the worst weeks of April, when 12 gasping students were put on ventilators during a single 12-hour shift. Now, what I'm getting at is doctors in emergency rooms are now suggesting people register to vote. Now, my question about this is, now, could this be a good thing, or could it be a bad thing? As far as registering to vote, most doctors don't have 3 minutes that they can spend with you. And I want somebody to tell me I'm wrong. When you go to the emergency room, or if you're in the hospital, then you come in, the doctor walks in your room, he spends maybe 2 minutes with you. How you feeling today? Taps you on your toe, and well, you can stay another day, or whatever the case. But now, they are now suggesting, can we help you to vote, to register? Can we help you to register? You don't have to believe what I'm telling you. You can look it up. New York Times has got this article. Now, there will be a time where, above the dim of suffering, we ask, how can we use this to make something better of our situation? And this is from Dr. Martin, who always supports Ready to Vote badge around his neck. Dr. Martin's project, Voter, has taken on new urgency as the pandemic has curbed traditional in-person voter registration efforts, and at the link between public policy failures and death has become especially clear. Let me tell you something. Now, despite the pandemic, or perhaps because of it, his project is spreading across the country. Since May, more than 3,000 health care providers have requested kits to register their own patients to vote, including a flagship hospitals across the country in Pennsylvania, Kansas, and Arizona. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the reason I'm bringing this up. Are the doctors now becoming too involved in politics? Is science becoming too involved with running your country, running your life? If they help you to register to vote, why can't a family member come and do that? Why can't a family member come in? Why, when the doctor doesn't have time to spend with you anyway? I'm asking that question because I think this is something that probably, I don't know, maybe you people already know about this. Maybe you already are aware of what is going on as far as doctors and healthcare workers of registering people to vote. And this was a birth of an experiment last year. I'm telling you right now. Okay. I just got a message that some of the state offices are doing the same thing. Now, the question I have is, if it's a good thing and doctors are not trying to persuade, or healthcare workers are not trying to persuade people which way to vote, what happens when they register them? Where does it go? How are they registering them? Where is that registration going? Who's getting their hands on it? If people are in the hospital and they're registering them to vote, are they going to be, is there a reason they can't, unless they're in the virus, if they have the virus and they're really that sick and they can't get out to register? I understand that. But what about when they go to vote? Are they going to get to go vote, or are they going to have to still be in quarantine of some kind and not be able to vote? Who's going to vote for them? You know, I think our most thing about this is you have to decide if this is a good thing or not. You have to decide whether the doctors and healthcare workers should be involved with registering people. And it's not just them. It's not just them. This is happening with other sources. Doctors need to take care of their patients, and I don't know that registering them has anything to do with their health. I really don't. If they're not already registered, chances are they're either not old enough to register, or they weren't old enough when they got in the hospital, and they're referring to younger people, and they're going to either try to sway their thinking. I don't have a clue. I'm not going to accuse doctors of doing that, but I am going to say this. I think it's risky that it's not a family member, because even family members might take somebody that that's in a nursing home or whatever, and if or an assisted living, and the person wants to vote one way, and the person is filling it out says, okay, I'll help you, and doesn't do it the way the person does it. This could be the same thing that happens when with registering somebody. They might want to register as a Democrat, and the guy might be a Republican and put him as a Republican, or vice versa. He could be a Republican and want to be registered as a Republican, and he ends up being registered as a Democrat. If he goes out and votes, he can vote any way he wants to anyway. That doesn't matter whether he's Republican or Democrat. You can vote any way you want to in most states. I don't think you have to vote because of your affiliate with whatever party. Dacia says, since when do they have time now? Well, see, that's what I was talking about earlier, Dacia, is doctors don't even have time to spend with you. When you're in his office, they're in and out. They're in and out. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a doctor to spend time with you, that's great. I think that's a wonderful thing if you're fortunate enough to have a doctor that can spend that kind of time with you, but most doctors don't. And if you're in the hospital, I can guarantee you they don't spend. In fact, most hospitals now don't even allow the doctors to come in. They have what's called I can't even think of the name off the top of my head. They're doctors that move around the country, and most of them are not even from this country. But they move from hospital to hospital. They're hired to. That drives me crazy when I forget what the title is. It doesn't matter. The point I'm getting at is your doctor doesn't have the right to come to a hospital anymore in most cases. This is happening around the country. So when do they have time to take the time? This one doctor wears a badge to remind people to register, and he'll help them register. So I guess he's got time to do that, but he doesn't have time to write out a prescription or to make sure it's right or straight. I mean, who knows? I don't know. You know what? I guess, I've spent a lot of time on this, the voting by mail topic. And I really appreciate the fact that I got the response that I did, because this is very important. Probably, when I mention about the registration, we may bring it up again. I don't know but on the next show, I didn't have a show because of this week because of the Republican convention, and last week I only had one show because of the after the Democratic convention. My next show, we will do one of two things. We will continue with the voting issue, or I'm going to jump back to the vaccine and masks and the coronavirus situation. You feel free to message me on Facebook. You can private message me if you like, and tell me what topic you want to talk about. Let me know. In the meantime, I'm doing what I can to bring you topics for you to think about. And I think this vote by mail topic is so important because it is dangerous. It is getting more and more and more dangerous. Now, this is a long video, and I know that a lot of people are not going to watch it, but for those that will watch it after it's done, I hope that you'll share it with your friends. Give them something to think about. I don't care what party there is. This affects us all. This election is going to affect this whole country. I'm telling you, more than probably the biggest in history. That's my personal opinion. I do truly believe this election will affect our whole world as to who the leader of the most powerful country in the world, the United States of America. We're more powerful than even China when it comes, except for one thing. China can really can really get into the election through their way of doing hacking, subliminal messages, whatever the case is, they definitely want to get rid of Trump. I can tell you that. And if you don't want to believe that, look it up. Start doing some searching, do some homework. And I'll tell you that probably, and same with Russia, they definitely want to get involved with this election. They don't want Trump. Nobody wants Trump in anymore. None of these countries, because they are afraid of him. Because he's not backed down. He was the only president to walk into North Korea, the only president to walk into China, the only president that's gone into Russia and told Putin or the leader, this is, we can be friends or we don't have to be friends. The point I'm getting at, he's taken and brought money and jobs back from China that were given away. So, if you're unhappy with me about putting some faith into Trump during this position, that's your choice. That's your decision, and it's okay. I always respect your decision. I will tell you right now, I cannot support Biden, not because of him personally as much as the people that will be helping and running his presidency. I actually don't even know if the Democrats will allow him to stay in office his full term. And that's just my own personal opinion. I know others have heard that, but I have to really believe this, that it's very possible that he would not serve his whole term. He says he'd serve 2 more terms. Another term after this one. Well, I think by that time he's 80-some years old. I don't know that he'd get reelected. But I don't think the Democrats want him as president right now. They know that he's popular enough that he might be able to get elected. But once he's in office, watch who starts pulling his puppet strings. And I'm very serious about that. So anyway, it's I got about 3 minutes that I can ramble, or I can cut this off. And I think that I really appreciate you staying with me, watching this, taking part of it. I'm probably going to do the show about the virus and vaccine and the masks next, because this affects everybody. Even those that don't believe. You're not saying the virus doesn't exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But for those of you that will not wear a mask or do not want to wear a mask, and it can cause issues, you're right, it can. And we're going to discuss things like that. And I think that'll probably be our next show. I think that we'll make that. If you have something different, please message me. I'm open to suggestions. For those of you that have stuck around, again, I want to say thank you so much. You've been not only helped. This is your show. You've made me make it so much easier. I just give you my information. You give me your thoughts, and I really appreciate it. All of you that took part, all of you made the comments. I love every one of you, regardless of your political stand or thinking or whatever the case might be. So I'm going to just say this, and then we're going to sign off in about 1 minute. How's that? I do these shows. I don't get paid for them. I don't think anybody that is on Facebook gets paid for them. I am eventually going to do both simulcast, YouTube and Facebook. I want to be able to take phone calls, but that takes a lot of money to get that set up. And I may have to go do a GoFundMe or something, but we're going to try to work on it. Because I want to broaden things. I want to broaden the spectrum so that we can have more people involved and get more people to know what's really happening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope that you'll be careful, be safe, be healthy, and remember, God bless America, and God bless you. Good night.